What's up, guys? I just want to talk a little bit about the race today. Um, Karma's a bitch, and Denny Hamlin got exactly what he deserved. I never liked this guy. I'm just going to say that straight out. Even from when he first started driving, there's something about him I didn't like. He's one of these guys that thinks people owe him something. Get out of my way. If you're in the way, I'm supposed to win. Driving dirty. He's always been a dirty driver. I mean, you don't see it all the time, but if you follow NASCAR and you watch all the races like I do, you know and you've seen countless times where he makes boneheaded moves, dive bombing, wrecking people, and sometimes just making decisions that could have been a huge wreck, but he got away with it. I've seen him do things on restrictor plate tracks, dive bombing, and or on restarts. He's not the only one, but he's part of a group of drivers I've never liked. So I couldn't be happier to see that not only did he not advance to the championship, but that he ended up getting taken out the way that he was taken out. So and all, let's be honest. Yeah, Chase drove him really hard, but I don't see it like an intentional wreck. I think he raced him hard and he said, "I'm gonna take this spot," but he didn't really go out of his way to, because he could have really hit him hard, and he raced him tough, and there wasn't a lot of room. So is it an official took him out? I'm not sure. But he did race him really hard. I don't have a problem with guys racing hard. But there's a fine line between racing hard and taking people out. I didn't really see this. I saw this more as racing, as a racing deal. That doesn't mean that Chase didn't have that in his mind. Like this, I'm going to move this guy no matter what. I'm sure that was there, obviously. But there's a world of difference between the way he raced Denny Hamlin than when Denny Hamlin steamrolled him in Martinsville. So I'm not sure. I guess they're going to look at it like, okay, it was payback and they're even, whatever. I don't care. All I care about is that Denny Hamlin got taken out of the playoffs. Karma's a bitch. So he sent a message to the garage. This is the way I race. I'm willing to take people out. I'm willing to be dirty. Well, guess what? Don't be surprised when people race you the same way. And it's just poetic justice that Chase Elliott was able to take him out. I'm not a huge Chase Elliott fan, but I like him. I'm most of these young drivers I like. Most of them are likable. But there's a lot of guys in the sport I don't like. I guess you could say it's a long list. It's just, there's something about me that I really appreciate humility. I appreciate professionalism. I get it that a lot of people are like, I don't care. I like drivers that drive and are aggressive and aren't afraid to do whatever to win. I don't know what it is. I'm just not built that way. I couldn't be proud of taking people out and for a win. Again, it's different if you just having it's a racing deal. You race each other hard, you try to go for the win. I get it. So I'm okay with that. But there's a point where you know you're going to just wreck somebody and just punt them out of the way. I couldn't be proud of that. And I can't root for people that race that way. And it's a fine line. You know, there's times where a guy does something and it's questionable, and I'm okay with that. But when it's obvious and it's just a guy who's just steamrolls people out of the way, I don't like people like that. I don't know what to tell you. So I never liked Denny Hamlin. There's a lot of guys I don't like. Kyle Busch is right at the top of the list. I just never liked his attitude. Now, just because I don't like these guys doesn't mean I don't think they're great drivers. Even Denny Hamlin, these guys are all talented. They're great drivers. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about rootability. I can't root for these guys. I root against them. My favorite driver is Jamie McMurray. I always liked him. I remember watching him get his first win in only his second start. And I was always a fan of his. I've always tended to root in sports in general for underdogs. Very rarely am I like a guy who roots for the top guys. The only exception being the Yankees. I've always been a Yankee fan. I'm from the Bronx all my life. I don't follow baseball like I used to. I don't care for it as much. I lost a lot of interest through the years, but I've always been a Yankee fan, and it just happened to be that way. So, outside of that, I've always tended to root for underdogs. That's just the way I am. I like humility. I like people that carry themselves with dignity and respect and professionalism. And, some of these guys just aren't like that. I don't see Kyle Busch that way. I never liked him. I see these people as privileged. They win a bunch of races with the best equipment, and then they become entitled. Like, okay, I'm supposed to win every time. People are just supposed to get out my way if I think I'm faster. And that's just the attitude a lot of these guys have. They don't think you have a right to race. You're just there as a field filler, and you're supposed to just get out their way. And when they don't win, they start whining and complaining and pointing fingers and stuff like that. So, never liked Kyle Busch. Never will. I don't really have a rooting interest in this playoff because I'm not a big fan of anyone who's there. But I will say that I just don't want Kyle Busch to win. I'm not a fan of Kevin Harvick either. That's another guy that I never liked. I can't tell you how many times I've seen him get out of a car after a race and he goes running after somebody or jumps on their car. Another guy who pretends to be tougher than he is. And never once have I seen him actually throw a punch. And these guys are always, wait for the crew to come in and separate them. So I don't like people like that. I just don't. Never liked Kevin Harvick. I'm not going to go through the whole list. But some people are just, a lot of these young drivers I do like, of this new generation. Kyle Larson, I like a lot. Chase Elliott, I'm sort of on the fence. I loved Bill Elliott, $1 Million Bill, but just because this is the son, I don't just automatically jump on that. But I'm kind of neutral with him, right? I like Kyle Larson. I like, oh my God. I get into these moments where I just blank out. I can't think of a name. But I like most of the young drivers. I don't like Eric Jones. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint what it is. There have been moments where I've seen he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Denny Hamlin or even a Kyle Busch. He's not up there yet, but I've seen him throw little tantrums after races and stuff like that. I don't know what it is. I don't like him. And when I say I don't like somebody, I don't want you guys to think that, man, I'm really taking it to an extreme level. Like I don't want something bad to happen to these guys or anything like that. We're just talking about rootability in the sport. I don't like these certain guys. But most of the young drivers I do like. There's a lot of talent. Congratulations to Kenseth. I always kind of liked him. He's got a quirky personality, very professional driver. He can still win races, but unfortunately, we're at a time now where younger drivers, there's too much young talent out there. If you're a top organization, you want to fill these seats with these young upcoming drivers, and there's more talent than there are seats available. So people like Kenseth, who many years ago, I remember a time where guys in that 40 years of age bracket, give or take a few years, who could still drive like Kenseth, always had an opportunity. They always had the top rides. They didn't want to take chances on these young guys. They wanted to kind of let them get some experience under their belt before they put them into a big-time seat. That's a thing of the past now. Now it's nothing to see a snot-nosed 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and he gets a top-level cup ride with hardly any cup experience. It's not a big deal. They just like, okay, you're going to get the seat, and let's just go for it. Times have changed. So I would think that Kenseth would, well, he clearly said he wants a top ride, and if he can't get it, he doesn't mind sitting out. So if that's truly how he feels, I respect that. But I think there's a lot to be said for someone who's willing to take maybe a second tier team to help them get over the hump. You can't, if you're a team that's struggling, you need a good driver who can maximize what the cars have to offer. So you don't really know what the car needs in terms of research, development, and how do you get your organization to get to the next level. You can't do that without a solid, dependable, experienced driver who understands what these cars need. So you can do all the wind tunnel tests that you want and engineering, but if you're not pushing these cars to their maximum potential, then you don't know where the weak link in the chain is. And I think there is a place for a guy like Kenseth on a team that wants to improve. The problem is, he's used to always having a top ride. He's a past champion. And it's a lot to swallow your pride and go out there knowing you're going to be a middle of the pack driver every week. And if that's not what you want to do, I understand it, I respect it. But if I was I would say an organization like Richard Petty, now they're a one-car team. And I like that they're going with Wallace next year. I like Wallace, and I'm going to root for him. But that organization has been lackluster for many years. And it's a shame because the name of Richard Petty is still important. And they're just a one-car team now. If they were willing to branch out and just add a car, I would go after a guy like Kenseth and say, look, we know we're asking a lot. We aren't a top-level team, but we need a guy like you to help us get over the hump. Okay? And maybe you can do something to entice him. Maybe do something like give him a share in the organization. Have some stake in Richard Petty Motorsports to see, okay, we'll field a second car, so you'll be out there every week, and you'll help us as an organization squeeze out the maximum out of these cars so that we can figure out where to focus and where to improve. So that's just a thought. I think that's where Richard Petty Motorsports should go. And if you can't get a guy like Kenseth, there are other options. Because there's a lot of very talented guys who just are getting opportunities. They're losing opportunities because these young drivers are so talented, and people want to give them a ride in a top spot because if you don't give it to them, someone else will. So those are my thoughts on Kenseth, what he should consider, and more importantly, what Richard Petty Motorsports should consider, because uh, they've been pretty bad for such a long time, and I'd love to see that organization uh, do better. And they might not become a top tier team, but they can be somebody who's just a notch below and be more competitive. And put that 43 out. You know, it's an iconic number, and it's an iconic organization because of Richard Petty. So those are just some random thoughts I have about NASCAR at the moment. But karma's a bitch, and I'm so happy that Denny Hamlin got what he had coming to him. I will say this, in all fairness, he after the race, you know, they asked him about the incident. He didn't go ape shit, you know, like most of these guys normally do, and he kind of took it in stride. But he had it coming, and he said Chase chose to retaliate. So I don't want to give him too much credit because it's obvious to everyone anyway. But at least he didn't go into a giant rant and whatever. He kind of took it in stride. He should have known it was coming, and he kind of did know. So I'll give him some credit for that. But this is why you conduct yourself with dignity, with respect, professionalism, and you race people the way you want to be raced. And just because you're trying to go for a win, there's still a fine line. You don't just steamroll somebody for a win. So, and I don't think what Chase did to him was anywhere near what he did to Chase in Martinsville. But he did kind of, put him to the limit. And so it is what it is. Those are my thoughts. What did you guys think of the race? And that's it. I look forward to your comments later.